My name is Jennifer, and for the past 9 years, it had just been Mom and me in our cozy two-story house. Dad died when I was 8, and Mom stepped up to fill both parental roles. She'd show up at my soccer games wearing a baseball cap, cheering louder than anyone else. She'd help me build science projects in the garage, cursing under her breath when she hit her thumb with the hammer. She even taught me how to change a tire in our driveway one scorching summer afternoon. Those were the good days. Mom worked extra shifts at the hospital to make sure I had everything I needed. At least, that's what she told me. I'd earned every penny myself, she'd say proudly whenever I got new clothes or school supplies. That's what mothers do. She was particularly protective when it came to Dad's side of the family. Whenever I asked about my grandparents, her face would harden. "They're bad people, Jenny," she'd say, her voice cold. "They hate us. They've never wanted to see you. You have me, and that's all you need." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my mom, my rock, my everything. Every birthday and Christmas, she'd give me presents in white boxes with big red bows, complete with heartfelt cards expressing her love. I kept every single one of those cards. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We had our routine, our inside jokes, our Friday movie nights with popcorn and chocolate. The house felt like a sanctuary, my room a personal haven with its lavender walls and window seat where I'd spend hours reading or watching the neighborhood kids play. I never questioned anything. Not the house we lived in, not the money we had, not the stories Mom told me about Dad's family. Why would I? Everything made sense in my little world. But then Mom met Richard. It started innocently enough. She came home one evening, practically glowing, and told me about this wonderful man she'd met at the hospital cafeteria. He was a widower with 2 kids, she explained, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in years. "He understands me, Jenny," she said, squeezing my hand. "He knows what it's like to raise children alone." I should have seen it coming. The late-night phone calls, the weekend dates, the way she started paying more attention to her appearance. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. 6 months later, they got married in a small ceremony. I forced a smile and played the part of the happy daughter. But deep down, something felt off. I just didn't know then how right that feeling would turn out to be. The moving boxes arrived on a Sunday. Richard, his 13-year-old son Tommy, and 10-year-old daughter Sarah barged into our house like they owned the place. I stood in the hallway, watching them carry in box after box, feeling like I was in some bizarre dream. "Jennifer, honey," Mom called from upstairs. "Come help Tommy move his things into your room." I nearly choked. "My room?" "Yes, your room," Richard said, appearing behind me. "It's the largest bedroom in the house, and Tommy needs the space. You understand, don't you?" I looked at Mom, expecting her to defend me, but she just nodded. "The guest room will be perfect for you, sweetie. Tommy needs to feel comfortable in his new home." My hand shook as I carried my belongings down the hall to the tiny guest room. It was barely big enough for a bed and a desk. Most of my things ended up in boxes stacked against the walls. My beloved window seat, my carefully arranged bookshelf, my entire life, all gone in an afternoon. "Mom, my books don't even fit in here," I protested. "We can donate some," she replied, not even looking up from helping Sarah arrange her dolls in her new room, my old crafts room. "You're too old for most of them anyway." Everything changed after that. Our Friday movie nights became family game nights where Tommy always got to pick the game. My spot on the living room couch? Now it belonged to Sarah because she's still adjusting to the new house. Even the bathroom schedule changed. I had to wake up 30 minutes earlier because Tommy needed more time to get ready for school. "Jennifer, could you watch the kids while Richard and I go out?" became Mom's new favorite phrase. Date nights, shopping trips, parent-teacher conferences, suddenly, I was the built-in babysitter. The kitchen, once my weekend baking sanctuary with Mom, became Sarah's cooking lesson space. The garage where Mom taught me to change tires? Now it was Tommy's workshop. Even the backyard birdbath Dad built had to be moved because Sarah wanted a swing set in that spot. "The kids need to feel at home," Mom would say whenever I objected. "They've been through so much. You're older, you should understand." But what I understood was that I'd become a guest in my own home. The walls that once held my family photos now displayed Richard's family portraits. The refrigerator that used to showcase my art and achievements was now covered with Tommy and Sarah's mediocre test scores and crude drawings. Every morning, I'd wake up in that cramped guest room, bumping my knee against boxes of my past life, wondering if Mom remembered who I used to be to her. But from the way she fussed over Tommy's breakfast preferences and Sarah's hair ribbons, I already knew the answer. A month into this new family arrangement, I noticed something odd. Money started disappearing from my piggy bank, the one I'd kept since I was 10. At first, it was just $5 here and there, which I might have dismissed as my own forgetfulness. But then $50 vanished at once, money I'd been saving from my part-time job at the library. I had my suspicions. I'd seen Tommy and Sarah eyeing my room whenever they thought I wasn't looking. They'd developed a habit of accidentally wandering in when I was in the bathroom or at school. But stealing? That was a whole different level. One afternoon, I cornered them in the backyard while their dad was at work and Mom was doing laundry. "Where's my money?" I asked, crossing my arms. Tommy puffed up his 13-year-old chest. "What money?" "Don't play dumb," I said. "My piggy bank. $5 disappeared 3 times, and now $50 is gone. You two are the only ones who go into my room when I'm not there." Sarah, who usually couldn't keep a secret to save her life, suddenly became very interested in her shoes. "We didn't take anything," Tommy insisted, but his voice cracked. I leaned closer. "Really? Should we ask your dad about this? I'm sure he'd love to hear about someone stealing in his house." The mention of their father changed everything. I'd seen how Richard handled discipline, the shouting, the harsh punishments, the way both kids would shake when they heard his heavy footsteps coming up the stairs. Tommy's tough guy act crumbled instantly. Sarah burst into tears. "Please don't tell Dad," she sobbed. "We just wanted some candy from the store." And video game credits," Tommy admitted, his face red. "We didn't think you'd notice the small amounts." I looked at their terrified faces and felt my anger softening. Just last week, I'd seen Richard ground Tommy for a whole month just for getting a C on a math test. And Sarah still couldn't sleep through the night after he'd yelled at her for spilling juice on the carpet. "Okay, listen," I sighed. "I won't tell your dad. But this stops now. No more stealing, got it?" They nodded frantically, promising to pay me back somehow. I didn't really believe them, but I considered the matter closed. Better to lose some money than to see them face Richard's wrath. But the universe had other plans. The next day, I came home from school to find Mom and Richard waiting in the living room. Their faces were storm clouds ready to burst. "You little thief," Mom shouted before I could even close the front door. "How dare you?" I froze, my backpack sliding off my shoulder. "What?" Richard stood up, his face red. "Don't play innocent." "Where's my money?" "The $300 from my wallet, where did you hide it?" "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, my voice shaking. "I haven't stolen anything from anyone. I swear." But I could tell from their expressions that they'd already decided I was guilty. The same way they'd decided Tommy deserved my room. The same way they'd decided their new family mattered more than me. Actually, Tommy's voice came from the stairs. "I saw Jennifer last night." He walked down slowly, playing with the zipper of his hoodie. "She was in Dad's office, going through his coat pockets. I saw her take the money from his wallet. She went to her room and hid the money under her pillow." "You're lying," my voice cracked. "They're the ones who've been stealing, from me. They took money from my piggy bank multiple times. $5, then more, and then $50 at once. I can prove it, they admitted it to me yesterday." "More lies," Mom spat. Richard, check her room." They rushed upstairs before I could stop them, their footsteps thundering through the house. I ran after them, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. This couldn't be happening. My mind raced through the events of yesterday, the confession, the tears, my decision to be merciful. How had it turned into this nightmare? But it was all too real. Richard yanked my pillow off the bed, and there it was, $300 in crisp bills, money I'd never seen before. Money I hadn't put there. My stomach dropped as I watched them stare at the evidence that had been planted against me. I knew it, Mom's face was contorted with rage. "You little thief. After everything we've done for you." "Mom, please," I begged, my voice trembling, "I didn't do this. They're setting me up. They've been stealing from me, and now they're trying to frame me. Why won't you even listen to my side? You used to always listen to me." The slap came out of nowhere, hard across my face. The sound echoed in the small room, and for a moment, everything went silent. My cheek burned, but what hurt more was the look in Mom's eyes, pure disgust. The same eyes that used to look at me with such love and pride now held nothing but contempt. "I will never trust you again," she hissed. "Never. I don't even know who you are anymore." Richard towered over me, his face dark with anger. "You're grounded indefinitely. And you can forget about that field trip to Vermont this weekend. Maybe some time alone in this room will teach you about honesty." "But I've been planning that trip for months," I protested through my tears. "I already paid for it. All my friends are going, it's our last trip together before senior year. Please, you can't do this." "Should have thought about that before you became a thief," he growled. "Actions have consequences, Jennifer. It's time you learned that." From the doorway, I caught Tommy's smirk. As our parents turned away, he stuck his tongue out at me, his eyes gleaming with triumph. In that moment, I understood, he'd planned this perfectly, knowing exactly how his father would react, knowing exactly how to hurt me the most. He'd turned my own kindness against me. I stood there in my tiny room, tears streaming down my face, my cheek still stinging from my mother's slap, watching my old life crumble around me. The mother who had once been my best friend, my protector, my everything, had just chosen her new family over me without a second thought. That night, lying in my cramped room with a throbbing cheek and swollen eyes, I remembered something. A memory from last summer surfaced, Mrs. Peterson, Mom's friend from the hospital, driving me home from a dentist appointment. We'd taken a different route, and she'd pointed to a beautiful 2-story colonial house with a wraparound porch. "That's where your father's parents live," she'd said casually. "I see your grandmother gardening sometimes." I'd stored that information away without thinking much about it. After all, Mom had spent years telling me how terrible they were. "They hate us, Jenny. They blame me for your father's death. They don't want anything to do with you." But now, in my desperation, that memory felt like a lifeline. The next morning, I waited until Mom left for her shift and Richard took Tommy and Sarah to soccer practice. Then I moved fast, shoving clothes and essentials into my backpack. I hesitated at my piggy bank, then grabbed it too. The bus ride across town felt endless. Each stop made my heart race, thinking Mom might somehow discover I was gone and come after me. But finally, I stood in front of that colonial house, my legs trembling as I walked up the path. Before I could even ring the bell, an elderly woman looked up from her garden. She dropped her trowel, her hand flying to her mouth. "John," she whispered, then shook her head. "No, you must be Jennifer." I nodded, suddenly unsure what to say. But I didn't need to say anything. She rushed forward and wrapped me in a hug that smelled of roses and baking bread. "George," she called out. "George, come quick. It's Jennifer." A tall man appeared at the door, his face a mirror of the photos I'd seen of Dad. He stared at me for a long moment, then joined our hug right there on the front lawn. Inside, over cups of hot chocolate, I told them everything. They listened without interrupting, though I saw Grandma grip Grandpa's hand so tight, her knuckles went white. Of course you'll stay with us, Grandma said when I finished. This is your home too. It always has been. But, I hesitated, years of Mom's warnings echoing in my head. Mom always said you hated us. That you blamed her for Dad's death and wanted nothing to do with me. They exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. Your mother and I, Grandma began, her hands wrapped around her teacup, we never got along, even before she married your father. She always thought we were trying to control their lives, but we just wanted to be involved. After your father died. She paused, gathering herself. She completely shut us out. Said she never wanted to see us again, and that you didn't either. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too warm. We tried everything, Grandpa added, his voice rough with emotion. We sent letters, made phone calls. Your mother blocked our numbers, returned our letters unopened. We even tried coming to the house once, but she threatened to call the police. She told me you hated us, I whispered, watching their faces crumple at my words. She said you blamed her for Dad's accident, that you thought she was a bad mother. Grandma reached across the table and took my hand. Oh, sweetheart, we never blamed anyone for the accident. It was just that, an accident. We were all victims of it, all of us grieving. But that's not even the half of it, Grandpa added, pulling out a thick manila folder filled with documents. When your father died, he left everything to you, Jennifer. The house, his savings, his investments, it was all put in trust for you. Grandma sighed heavily. We've been sending your mother money every month since your father died, for your care, your education, everything you might need. $2,000 every single month, without fail. I thought about all the times Mom had worked double shifts, telling me how hard she had to work to keep us afloat. All the times she'd proudly told me she'd saved up for my school supplies, my clothes, my class trips. We sent gifts too, Grandma continued, her voice tight with emotion. Every birthday, every Christmas. White boxes with red bows, and cards telling you how much we loved you, how much you looked like your father. We'd spend hours picking out just the right things, books we thought you'd like, jewelry we hoped you'd treasure. My heart stopped. Those boxes. My special birthday and Christmas presents, the ones Mom always said she picked out especially for me. But, I thought of all those cards in my memory box, the cards were always signed by Mom. She must have switched them, Grandpa said quietly. Taken out our cards and replaced them with her own. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Mom hadn't just passed off their gifts as her own, she'd deliberately removed any trace of them from my life. All those carefully chosen words from my grandparents, all that love, destroyed and replaced with forgeries. And the house? I asked, still trying to process everything. You're saying it's legally mine? They nodded in unison. Grandpa spread out more paperwork on the table, deed transfers, trust documents, bank statements. 9 years of financial records, all showing a carefully documented trail of support that Mom had hidden from me. Everything was put in a trust for you when you turn 18, Grandpa explained. We had no idea she'd remarried, Grandma said quietly. Or that she'd moved someone else into your house. Legally, she had no right to do that without consulting the trust administrators. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking so badly I had to retype the message 3 times. I'm at Dad's parents' house. I know everything about the money, the gifts, the house. I'm coming tomorrow to get the rest of my things. We need to talk. Mom was waiting in the living room when I arrived the next morning. Her face was pale, her hands twisting in her lap. She looked smaller somehow, like a deflating balloon. Jenny, sweetheart, let me explain. No, I cut her off. You've done enough explaining for the past 9 years. Now it's my turn to talk. She flinched at my tone but stayed silent. This house, I said, looking around at the walls that held so many memories, it's mine, not yours. Dad left it to me, along with everything else. You had no right to move them in here. I gestured toward the stairs where Tommy's basketball and Sarah's backpack lay scattered. But I'm not going to kick you out, I continued. You can stay here for 4 years while I'm at college. But there are conditions. Mom's relief quickly turned to indignation when I mentioned conditions. Conditions? I'm your mother. Are you? I asked coldly. Because a real mother wouldn't slap her daughter over a lie. A real mother wouldn't kick her daughter out of her own room in her own house. And a real mother definitely wouldn't spend 9 years hiding letters and replacing gift cards from loving grandparents with fake ones from herself. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You'll pay rent, starting next month. I'm being generous, giving you 4 years to find somewhere else. Mom jumped to her feet. Pay rent? To my own daughter? No normal daughter would demand rent from her mother. I felt my anger surge. No normal mother would steal her daughter's inheritance. No normal mother would lie about her grandparents hating her. And no normal mother would take credit for gifts and money that came from someone else. Richard chose that moment to emerge from his office. Now listen here, young lady. No, you listen, I snapped, turning to face him. When I turn 18, I can evict you all with one phone call to my lawyer. So unless you want to start house hunting tomorrow, I suggest you stay out of this. His mouth snapped shut. He looked at Mom, who had sunk back into her chair, then retreated to his office without another word. I'm moving in with Grandma and Grandpa, I said, heading for the stairs to pack my remaining things. They've already stopped the monthly payments they've been sending you. You know, the ones you claimed were from your extra shifts at the hospital? Mom started to sob, but I kept going. Years of lies had hardened my heart against her tears. Over the next few months, Mom called constantly. Her voicemails followed a pattern, first apologetic, then pleading, finally desperate. Jenny, please come home. I'll make it right. I'll kick them out, I promise. It can be just us again, like before. But I knew better. I'd seen how she looked at Richard, how her face softened when he entered a room. She loved him, despite everything. Her promises to choose me were as empty as all her other words had been. I deleted the voicemails without responding. Instead, I focused on building my new life with my grandparents, discovering the family I should have known all along. Grandpa taught me to play chess, just like he'd taught Dad. Grandma shared family recipes, showing me how to make Dad's favorite cookies. My 18th birthday arrived on a warm spring day. I celebrated twice, first with friends at a local restaurant, then a quiet dinner with my grandparents. They gave me a silver locket containing a photo of Dad and me from when I was little. Mom didn't show up, though she sent a text, "Happy birthday, sweetie. I miss you." The next day, I met with the family lawyer. With my birthday, everything became official, the house, the investments, all of it legally mine. I had the lawyer draw up a rental agreement for Mom and Richard, setting the rate at twice lower the market value. They signed without argument. My old room will stay mine, I told Mom during the signing. I'll be checking in regularly to make sure my property is being maintained properly. She just nodded, unable to meet my eyes. Before leaving for college, which my grandparents insisted on paying for, wanting to give me the fresh start they'd been denied all these years, I made one final inspection of the house. My old room had been restored exactly as it was, my furniture back in place, the walls freshly painted in my favorite shade of lavender. Even my old posters had been carefully rehung. Tommy and Sarah were oddly subdued when they saw me, no trace of their former smugness. Richard kept his eyes on the floor. And Mom? Mom hovered at the edges, like a ghost of her former self. Everything looks acceptable, I said, using the formal tone I'd adopted for all our interactions now. The same tone she'd used when telling me all those lies about my grandparents. Sometimes I lie awake at night, trying to understand why she did it. Why spend 9 years constructing such an elaborate web of lies? Did she really think my grandparents would die before the truth came out? Or was it deeper than that, some old wound, some perceived slight that made her want to punish them by stealing their only grandchild? I'll probably never know the whole truth. Mom's reasons died along with our relationship, buried under years of deception. The mother I thought I knew, the strong, independent woman who worked extra shifts to support us, who gave me special presents in white boxes with red bows, who protected me from supposedly hateful grandparents, that woman never existed. But life has a way of balancing things out. My grandparents have become my anchor, my safe harbor. Every college break, every holiday, I come home to them. We make up for lost time with board games and baking sessions, with long talks and shared memories. Mom still lives in my house with her new family, paying her rent on time every month. Maybe that's her form of penance, her way of acknowledging the years of deception. Or maybe she just knows she has no choice. Either way, I've learned that sometimes the happy endings we get aren't the ones we expected, but they're the ones we need.